Alright, so two things. The first thing is my phone charger lit itself on fire. I'm hoping my phone does not die in the meantime. The second thing is I will be skipping Acheron. I'm pretty sure I told you this in the previous video, but I'm going to be helping those of you that choose to roll for this character in the upcoming patch 2.1. But I did notice that I actually didn't talk about how Acheron can be built in the previous video, so we'll be doing that. So let's talk about the obvious characters I would use Acheron if I had the character, and that would be Silverwolf. This is the most important character because she applies debuffs every single turn. She has Defense Shred, which is really good for Acheron because that allows Acheron to do the most damage she can possible to the elite enemies, which in Honkai Star, there usually is elite enemies always on the field, which allows you to deal more damage. And on top of that, there is a couple things Silverwolf does further provide for Acheron. The weakness implant is really valuable because not only do you have a chance to put the lightning, but you put the quantum, which allows your Acheron to be slotted in with different types of relics. The quantum set is so ridiculously good, it allows you to ignore the enemy's defense, which in combination with some of the characters you're going to be using in the same team of Acheron, is going to allow her to deal damage like crazy. So you don't have to actually have Acheron in the new debuff set, because if you are farming the Genealines to Brilliant Stars, right, and you have Acheron in the same team party as Silverwolf, you can just use these two together with this same relic set. That also means characters like Pela is able to defense shred the enemies even more, this time in AoE, which means your Acheron will deal even more damage in combination with that defense ignore you are getting from the quantum set, you'll deal even more damage. So again, you are dealing a ton of more damage with the characters you were already going to use in the same team party. So why not benefit from that relic set as well, and you can save from farming too. Now I do understand we have the 2.1 anniversary coming up, and for those of you that do want to invest in a dedicated relic set for Acheron, because maybe her supports do change later down the line, she gets a dedicated best in slot support, then knock yourself out. I cannot be bothered to build another DPS from scratch in this game. I cannot do it anymore. As for the defensive option, I'm going to be using Huohuo for a number of reasons. The first reason is that Huohuo gives a ton of cleansing. The cleansing is very important because you want to make sure that every time you do take the turn with your... we'll talk about the stats in a second. But the reason why I'm using Huohuo in the same team party with Acheron is because Huohuo gives a ton of cleansing, which is very important for... I feel like I did just say this, but let's just keep the ball rolling here. A lot of cleansing for the Nihility characters you're going to be using in the same party as Acheron, because those Nihility characters need to take the turn every single time they're able to, so they can put the debuffs on the enemy, and therefore your Acheron will be able to take the turn and have her ultimate at max charge. That's very important. You need to make sure that your Nihility characters are not debuffed, right? Not stunned, not frozen, so on and so forth, because any type of action delay, any type of CC induced on those allies is going to give Acheron a lower DPS. It's very important. So obviously the energy you are getting from Huohuo does not matter for Acheron in the grand scheme of things, but the attack percentage is really freaking good. This matters especially because in the team of Acheron, none of your characters in the team party are going to give Acheron attack. So getting attack from an external source like Huohuo will give Acheron even more damage whenever she takes her turn. This is very important, right? You're not getting attack from your relic set. You're not getting attack from your plan. Well, I believe the new planar set does, which we'll talk about the relics in a second, does give attack for the character. I believe they did change it. We'll take a look at it before we do talk about it. But you are not getting attack percentage from Silverwolf and Pela. You're not even getting any crit. I mean, unless you have them on the resist set, right? To give crit damage after having 30% effect res. But I assume most of you probably won't have that because you're probably having a Silverwolf on a DPS build with speed at this point. So therefore, you're not getting much attack percentage from external sources. So having attack from Huohuo is going to matter all the more. And the attack you do get from Huohuo does ramp up pretty quickly if you take into consideration. Huohuo is going to take multiple turns over your Acheron, which means you should have the attack percentage at nearly 100% uptime for Acheron. Near 100% uptime. I thought about using Fu Xuan. The only reason why I don't want to use Fu Xuan is because I don't want to use this character when I'm already using her in other teams. Like for instance, I'm using her alongside Jing. I'd rather not take Jing's best support away from him instead of using that character. I'd rather just use Huohuo in the same team part of Acheron. Again, other than providing damage mitigation, all Fu Xuan provides is crit rate, which can be very valuable. Again, this is very nice. But Acheron desperately needs the attack more than anything else, right? And real talk, for some of you that don't have your Silverwolf, right, built, you can use Guinai Fen. She's a very nice character to use in the same team party. Guinai Fen gives a ton of value with the amount of debuff she throws on enemies. She has AoE, right? She's able to equip the Resolution Shines relic. Did I say relic? Artifact? Did I say artifact? This is not Epic 7. Light Cone. God, I played too many gacha games. Light Cone, which gives a decreased defense on the enemies, right? Which means in combination with your Acheron, you're always going to have the enemies with a debuff every single turn from Green Knight Fen. And remember, Green Knight Fen can put a burn on the enemy as well with a mere basic attack. So you can remain skill point positive with this character because your Acheron wants to use her elemental skill every single turn. Let's not forget that Green Knight Fen can actually increase the damage of your Acheron furthermore in AoE with the vulnerability she throws at the enemy, which is known as Fire Kiss for the character, but it is a vulnerability debuff, which means the enemies will be taking increased damage from all sources, which is very good for Acheron in those AoE scenarios. I didn't mention Welt, and Welt is another great character you can use in the same team party alongside Acheron, because Welt has a ton of debuffs. He has a ton of slows, and he has a vulnerability increase the enemy's take just like Green Knight Fen. So again, Welt is a very solid. I would say he's honestly better than using Green Knight Fen. It's just you may or may not have this character because he is a standard banner character, right? And you may not have already reached your 300 pity pool. And I know a lot of people, maybe you probably know that you should pick up Bronya in case you don't have her or her Eidolon 1, right? Because she still is a very valuable character. But if you do have Welt, he is a very nice option to use. And in combination with the Resolution Shines Light Cone, you're giving either further decreased defense on the enemy, which means your Acheron will do even more damage on top of the vulnerability increased enemies take, right? You're just doing so much more damage. And then the slows is very nice too, because Welt is able to take more turns, right? The enemies take less turns, and you can imprison them too, which delays their action even more. It depends on the type of enemy you're actually fighting to determine how valuable the delay action and the imprisonment is from Welt. And there is some tech you can use, like the Fire MC alongside the Trend of Universal Market Light Cone. The only reason why I do not suggest this for the majority of players is because it's going to be hard to use this as a defensive option, right? A lot of you may not have invested too much into your trope. Again, you have to invest into the character, get the traces up and all that and so on and so forth. Make sure the character has some speed. The only reason why I don't suggest this for the majority of players is because having Fire MC is known to be very hard as your defensive option, right? Especially in Honkai Star nowadays where the enemies hit extremely hard, not only in AoE scenarios, you have no healing in the team, which means in longer battles, right? Like for instance, the Sam battle, it becomes even harder to sustain the team, right? So I wouldn't do it. So why would I recommend this to the majority of players? You may enjoy playing the game a lot harder than other players. I just don't. And then let's not forget Jephard. Jephard does have a Freezy Throw since enemy, which does count as a debuff too. So that's very nice. So if you do have Jephard built, right, you can use him as your defensive option too. You need to just have a character that can provide value to the team. It doesn't matter if that character is a debuffing character or not. Just make sure that the character for the defensive options we're talking about, right? Make sure that character does have some value for the team comp with Acheron, right? Now, very important, you want to make your Soul Wolf as fast as possible because you want to make sure this character can take many turns before Acheron does take her turn. You want to make sure this character can apply either the lightning or quantum weakness depending on what the enemy already has in terms of weakness. And again, you want to make sure that you're able to get those debuffs, right? If you have a lower amount of effective rate, you want to get it as high as possible. The nice thing about Pela is that she's able to give further effective rate to the team, which means you can have Soul Wolf have a little bit less effective rate because Pela is providing more effective rate. Alright, so as a free-to-play player, you only have like 2 options in terms of light cones you can use. Good Night and Sleep Well, even if you have it at Refinement 1, use it because it gives you a ton of damage when the enemies are inflicted with debuffs. Pela, right, AoE scenarios, she's applying debuffs to enemy on the field, and then Soul Wolf is applying a lot of enemy debuffs, a lot of debuffs to a single enemy, right, in those elite scenarios, right? You're always going to be hitting the elite targets with Soul Wolf, and so on and so forth, while providing a lot of debuffs on AoE, a lot of debuffs on single target too. Green Knight Fen providing a lot of debuffs in single target AoE, basic attack, right, can apply the burn. Acheron alongside your Black Swan and Kafka, they can apply dots to the enemy, which means you'll get this stacked within the first turn relatively easy, right? As long as you have the effective rate on those characters. They're applying so many debuffs though. And then Loop can be pretty solid if the enemy has a slow from your Soul Wolf. Soul Wolf does put a slow with her basic attack, her elemental skill, or her ultimate. Do keep in mind though, you have to make sure the enemy does have that slow. If the enemy does not have that slow, you're not going to get the damage dealt increase. So not having Soul Wolf in the party or not having Welt in the party is a huge DPS loss if you plan to not use them with this light cone. I did talk about this in the last video, but Fermata being really nice in those teams, you can honestly use Sampo, as crazy as that is. He does increase the damage that the enemies take from dots, but he does apply the wind shear, right? Which means you can utilize Fermata on your Acheron. It's just better to use Black Swan and Kafka because you get more damage, right, for the team overall, while Acheron's still able to get that requirement she needs in order to use Fermata, right? And you can get this Refinement 5 really easily. So that's why I want to include this in this video. We are apparently getting a light cone this patch for free. I don't know what light cone is going to be. I have to look into it. I believe it probably will be a light cone for Aventurine, just because it seems like they want to milk Acheron. I mean, again, I'm going off the top of my head here, so I could be completely wrong, but I will take a look into it probably right now, and then I will edit if it ends up being a light cone that Acheron can use for herself. So I do not remember by heart the planar set, what it exactly does. I do remember hearing about attack percent increase. Now, this could have changed from the beta, right, completely. And again, when I watched the live streams, I'm pretty sure I mentioned this in a previous video, I actually do not have the volume on. The only time I did was the 2.0, and I enjoyed it a little bit, especially the song that played, but that was just the song. The song was goated, man. Everything else after that goated song was pretty mid to me, so I just didn't listen to it. And I do have a couple of the, what are they called? Dude, there's so many different names in this game. I can never remember what the name of these things were called. Topaz, help me, please. I will be using the self-modeling resin when I farm for the planar sets for my Acheron, just because I do not want to have to go through farming piece by piece. It's going to be awful. I'm just going to go for main stat and worry about the substats on those main stats later. Okay, so there you have it. I'm honestly losing it. It's just so many names. We get new relics, new planar sets like every patch. It's so hard to keep up with the names of these things, and then also remember characters, and then the characters' abilities, the character's ultimate, the character's elemental skill, what the characters do, so on and so forth. It's just, listen, it's going to come to the point like 2 years from now in Honkai Star Rail, there's going to be so many different relic sets, so many different planar sets. People are still going to be using Space Sealing Station, and I'm be like, what is Space Sealing Station, right? When there's something that gives like 30% crit rate and like 20% crit damage later on. That's going to be the video here. Thank you for watching, and have a nice rest of your day. Peace.